Okay, good afternoon, Coach Smith. Could you give us an idea of how important today was for the football program?
No question. It's an exciting day for the Beavers today with the guys who would be joining us. It's been a world-ready experience, not just for myself the last 3 weeks, but for these kids as well. And it was an awesome opportunity for me to get around most of their families, not all of them, most of their families. We had more than half of these guys come up on visits the last couple of weekends, and again, to continue to talk about a vision moving forward and getting to know them. And it's about the right fit, the fit for the place. And these guys, a bunch of these guys were pretty knowledgeable about Oregon State before. And it was fun sharing experiences because I've sat in their seats, man, been a player, come up here and experience it. And so it's an exciting time.
Questions?
Coach, you got, oh, sorry, Ken.
Go ahead.
With the recruits you got, are they mostly guys that the previous staff was recruiting, or did you have to make some adjustments there?
Majority of them were, yeah, majority of them were, and those guys had done a good job in identifying after watching a bunch of their tape. I was familiar with a lot of them, not extensively knowing, and that's why, again, I go back to these last three weeks of getting to know these kids. A lot of these kids had been to the place a couple of times, unofficially and officially, and so the majority of these guys had a good understanding of what Oregon State had looked like before.
Kind of going off of that a little bit, a lot of these kids are from the Northwest, and 3 of them from Oregon. Obviously, when you were brought in, a lot of the recruiting culture to the Northwest was asked. So what did you learn about that process? But obviously keeping in mind that a lot of these guys were from a previous regime.
Yeah. Well, intentions coming in here, there's a bunch of players in the Northwest that can play. I've been around and recruiting this area for the last 15 years. I go back to, again, a lot of my experience from recruiting / being a player here. There's a bunch of good players that we won a bunch of games with here at Oregon State, and we want to continue that. And so that's going to be a starting point moving forward. You know, we get a full year to be able to recruit that we want to start around here, and there's a familiar fit. This won't be exclusive, though. Obviously, we're going to go anywhere players are there that we think fit the place, but it's important for us to know and identify local kids, and I think we've started doing a good job of that.
11 players that have signed that we have on the list here so far. How many more do you expect to sign, and how much more room do you have?
Well, that was a little bit of the approach, too. We weren't going to allow the early signing to dictate our entire class. Just putting together a staff, all of that, we were definitely going to sign probably around the same number come February, give or take 1 or 2. And that was the approach we were going to take of kids that had known about this place. We were going to talk to them and make sure the fit was right, and then begin to get to a larger group after that. Also, you got to get familiar with what we have here. There's some players that can play, but I'm sure there's some areas that we need to get more bodies at. And so just not knowing the whole picture and going through a 3-week process, we weren't going to just kind of try to fill the whole class on this first signing date. There's a bunch of players still available out in January, and we're going to identify those guys, build relationships with those guys, and sign some more in February.
Jonathan, this is the first time for early signing period throughout the country. Is this going to take a while for you and your staff and for everybody maybe in college football to get used to it? And do you kind of like having 2 signing periods?
Right. I think that there's for sure some unknown today, I think, across the country. And so going through a first-time experience and then you throw in a new staff, all of that was unique and different. I'm not against 2 signing periods. I don't exactly know what's the right date and whatnot. But trying here at the end of December is the cards we were dealt, and our approach, again, I liked it. I liked to get about half and then to get another half through January.
With that January or with February signing period, and you have a handful of guys coming in early in January, how big will those new signees / enrollees be in helping you recruit some of these other guys? Yeah, we always use kids that are currently here, current players for sure, and then the kids have come on board today. They'll be a part of that process, and they'll begin to experience it. You know, the 3 kids we got coming in early at this point we're excited about. But again, it'll come down to, again, finding the right fit. They're going to be good players, but, football's important to them, school's important to them, and we'll find more guys in January.
Jonathan, comment please on Jake Duker, the quarterback that you guys signed today.
Yeah, it's great having Jake. He was able to come on an official visit here with us, the current staff, and you know, the guy is well-rounded. You know, he's an elite baseball player, really good football player. I know Steve Corey really, really well, head coach there at Lake Oswego, and so getting to talk to Steve and ask around the school, and then meeting him and his family when they came over. I think the guy is a really good athlete, a good quarterback. Really, we've watched a lot of film on him the last 3 weeks, and I think he's a great fit for our place.
Any other questions?
Coach, how important is it right now to retain Ryan Nall? It's kind of a recruitment process probably in and of itself. What's that process been like?
Yeah, I've had multiple conversations with Ryan. He's weighing some options on some different things. I don't know exactly where he's at right now with it. I was able to sit down with him and his parents and explain a vision for this next year for him. He's been on some great things for Oregon State for sure, and it's in his court in regards to making a decision.
I understand you've been working basically around the clock to put together a recruiting class, a coaching staff, and so on. How do you feel like you've been settling into the position, settling into the role, communicating with players, and establishing those relationships overall?
Yeah, I feel good. There's no question. There's a lot been going on the last 3 weeks of what you described: recruiting, staff, meeting the current players here, and so trust takes some time, and so we're going to dive into these current players starting January 8th when school starts. But I like where we're at. Said it before, I wanted to rather be late than wrong and on some of these big decisions, and that's the aspect of recruiting and staff. But where we're at right now, I feel awesome. It's been great to be in here for 3 weeks and then just diving into it. But we just got some work to do.
You mentioned putting together a staff. What kind of things did you look for when you started going about that, and how successful do you think you've been in?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking for great elite people. For the starting point. There's a bunch of good coaches out there, and there's a bunch of good people, but elite people that can teach. I wanted to have some experience within this conference, not every position, but some experience within this conference and again, some guys that I've known and been around. Wasn't going to be I had to have worked with them before because there's some good coaches out there, and so we started with that point of elite people that are elite coaches, and it comes down to really the ability to teach. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that know a lot of football. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to take that knowledge and get it into the player. We're off to a great start with the guys we've hired.
You brought Mike Riley back. You've been a head coach here twice before. A little bit of an unusual move. Can you talk about the thought process?
Yep.
And was that a difficult decision to bring back a guy that has been in this job as a head coach?
Yeah, a lot went into that thinking, and the more you continued to think about it, the more I continued to talk to Mike. We really felt that this could be a great fit. I think the guy brings unbelievable value in recruiting. He's respected, across the country, but especially on this West Coast. All his ties to coaches, JC coaches, and his ability to evaluate players. And we can run off a long list of guys that have been here, played here, that he evaluated, got here. And so the recruiting piece was a starting point of he would bring great value. I think you look at him schematically on the football end. He's known for an offense, and he's been able to do great things offensively, but he really started his career as a defensive guy. Been a defensive coordinator, coached in the NFL for 2 years as a position coach. And so he gives me some flexibility on what side he could end up doing. And then at the end of the day, take Mike Riley out of the equation. When I'm first-time head coach, it would be a benefit to have one of your assistants who have sat in that seat before, to be able to bounce an idea off of, or just get a second opinion on maybe a discipline issue, weight room issue, schedule issue, whatever. And he fit all of that. And so it took us, again, through conversations to get our heads around completely what this role would be like. I feel ecstatic how it finished up. I mean, he's going to coach a position. He'll be responsible for that position. That full confidence that he'll do a great job.
Have you narrowed down which side of the ball for you?
We're still working through that. Again, his flexibility allows us to get the elite people I'm looking for. Got a couple of positions left to hire, but haven't narrowed it down yet.
That was my question. When do you expect to make these 2 hires? And with the second guy, can you announce him now and then he doesn't start?
Right. No, I don't know the exact procedure. My understanding, he cannot start till a couple weeks into January. So again, we're not rushing these decisions. We got to get these things right, the right fit. And again, we're taking our time working through that.
Do you have time to give us a thought, even if it's just 1 or 2 words on each of the recruits?
Yeah, I can run through these kind of quick, but I'll start with Bradley Bickler. You know, defensive end from Southridge, good framed, liked his versatility, good basketball player, was able to meet him and family, came on a recruiting visit. We were excited about him. Keyshawn Dawkins, again, some versatility, good frame out of, Westland High School. Basketball player again. I think the upside for him is off the chart. We've talked about Jake a little bit as I go through this. Craig, Francois, KK, he actually lives in my old town of Pasadena, California. He came up on a visit with his parents. I think he's a physical player, can play inside or outside at the linebacker position. Isaac Hodgins, brothers on the team currently, was able to sit in their home, meet the parents as well. Good family now. Those people are good people. We're excited about him playing at the defensive line, which is an area we want to add to. Sire Irish was a kid I knew a lot about up there when last 4 years in Seattle. I think that guy's a versatile, good receiver that can run and make some plays. He's a good basketball player, baseball player, was able to get with his family. He was actually down here on a recruiting visit with his grandfolks. So I think he brings a lot to us. Jake Levingood's an offensive lineman that is a good player that actually Jimmy knew about coming over here. Wrestler, one of the better wrestlers in the country right now, like his nastiness and the competitiveness that he's got. Case Rogers is another, again, after you continue to watch and find out more about these kids, Case has the capability of playing some running back, receiver, multiple position player, played good football down in Texas. Excited about him. Isaiah Smalls, kind of the lead recruiter of the class, and got that chance to go down to Dorsey and meet his mom, and had a good time at lunch with those guys. And he's got some athleticism, because again, tight end position, unique in regards to what we like to do on offense, and moving him around, we think he's a great fit. Isaiah Tafunga did not get over to the island just with the limited time I had, but you talk about a captain, unbelievable grades, good player that's been able to run around like him as well. And then Deshaun, goes by Duca Wilson, got a chance to get down in the Bay Area and see him. I think that, athletic enough to play corner, probably has the size enough to be able to do some safety. Kid's a good kid that we got to know over the last couple of weeks, and again, excited about him.
Jonathan, again, back to Coach Riley. He mentioned that he actually contacted you about possibly being on your staff. It wasn't the other way around. Did that surprise you that he reached out to be a part of that role that way?
Well, a little bit surprised, a little bit taken back in regards to that he would be interested, but then you continue the conversations with him, conversations with other programs that were trying to get him in a similar role. It was pretty competitive to get him, and so it took us a couple of days talking through exactly what this role would look like, because the reality is we haven't worked together that much. I mean, I was a player. I had 1 year as being a graduate assistant with him, and then 15 years later, we're coming back. And so I've grown, he's grown. I've been around a good head coach the last 6 years that we're going to do some similar things that I've learned. And so I wanted that to be clearly communicated to him, and he was all on board.
You got a number of guys who are going to come out in January and start and graduate high school early. That seems to be more and more of a trend. Do you like that? And when are you planning on having your spring practice this year?
Right. I think, the kids that arrive early on campus and cut short their high school experience, it's all about really the individual guy, what's best for them. I think there's a bunch of guys that it's better for them to finish their senior years of high school and go. And then there's some guys that for sure it's the right time. They're anxious to get going. Positionally, the opportunity in spring ball, so what's right, what's wrong, I think it depends on the individual. Spring ball for us will be in April. We'll go through this winter term here and again, get to know these guys, get into the weight room, allow us to kind of put our staffs together / plans together. So we'll go 4 weeks in April for spring ball.
When will Coach Tibbs be here?
I'm sorry?
When will Tim Tibbs
He's finishing things over there in Wisconsin. They've had an unbelievable year. Allowing him to finish was important for me because, again, my opportunity here created a situation I wasn't able to finish. I would have loved to have been able to finish with those guys, but for him, I think the right move was them to allow to finish over there, and then I'll head this way.
What's your philosophy on junior college recruiting?
I think it's an important piece. I think it's a selective piece, you know, and there's some needs there. There's some good players at that level, and I've been around them as a player and a coach that can really help and contribute. Big picture, rather be working toward the development end, get some high school players in and go, but there's always a time and a place for a junior college player.
Anything else? Thank you, Coach Smith.
Awesome.
Good afternoon.
Awesome, appreciate it.